Once upon a time, there is a man named Ichabod Crane. Now, Ichabod was a school teacher in the small settlement of Sleepy Hollow, and it is now called, nowadays, New York. And I'm sure you've heard of New York, but back then it was called Sleepy Hollow. Now, Ichabod, he was a school teacher, which meant he taught math, he taught reading, writing, he taught anything the school wanted him to teach for the children. Now, because he was a school teacher, it didn't always mean that everybody liked him. Now, Ichabod had somewhat of a strange look to him. He was often mysterious, he was weird, he had some weird antics to him, but overall, he was deeply respected as a teacher. Now, because he lived on the settlement of Sleepy Hollow, it was a big village of many, many people. And what the village consisted of was people, crops, animals, you name it. Now, there was a family that essentially ruled Sleepy Hollow, and they were called the Van Tassels. They were deeply respected. The mother, the father, especially the daughter. The daughter, Katrina Van Tassel, she was beautiful. She had long hair, such a pretty face. Her dresses were beautiful. She was the crush of every man of Sleepy Hollow, especially Ichabod. Now, what Ichabod didn't know was that there was another man named Brom Bones. And you're probably thinking, Brom Bones. It's kind of like an alliteration if he had a B as his middle name. And it's also interesting because bones, just like the human bones that we have on our body, yeah, pretty funny, I must say. But Bones and Ichabod, they were fighting for the intentions of Katrina, and what better way to do it was at the party that the entire village of Sleepy Hollow was invited to by the Van Tassels. So Ichabod went. He arrived, and he looked high and he looked low, just for Katrina, only to see her with Bones. Yep, she was there with Bones, and although he did see her and they made eye contact, she remained talking to Bones. So, in that moment, Ichabod left defeated. So he saddled up on his horse and he began to gallop away. It was until when they were galloping in the forest, they heard something strange behind them. They heard a lot of tasseling, they heard a lot of rustling. So, what did Ichabod do? Ichabod looked behind him and he saw something horrifying. He saw what it seemed to be a huge black mare horse with the person riding it. They had a pumpkin as a head. And then one hand had a lantern. They were holding a lantern while also guiding the mare. While the other hand, they had a head in their hand. A head. So, as one person is, Ichabod was deeply frightened. So, he giddied up to his horse. He went, yeah! He and the horse galloped away, but the person was still behind him. As they were galloping away, he came to the conclusion that it was most definitely Brom Bones, because who else would want to follow Ichabod home other than him having a crush on Katrina Van Tassel? So Ichabod and his horse kept galloping away, but they could still hear the footsteps of the horse and the man behind them. As they kept galloping away further to the village, he then came up with the name for the man on the horse. Also a nickname for Mr. Bones, which was the Headless Horseman, because all he had on him was the pumpkin head, and the head was in his hand. And as Ichabod looked behind him, he could see that they were nowhere near him or his horse. So as soon as he returned to the village, he turned around again, and all of a sudden he heard a splat. He then stopped the horse. He went, woo! He got down from the horse, and then he looked down in front of him, and he saw the pumpkin splattered, and he just saw the horse galloping away. He saw the mare gallop away with the headless body, and just the pumpkin and the lantern on the ground. He then went home, and he then thought to himself, was it really Mr. Bones, or was it a ghost? Was it a ghost that I saw?